I'm having some weird issues with my phone. I just recorded a video and it's like it's gone. It's gone. I don't know why. Um, I wanted to talk about my therapy. I've already vlogged on how Paul's mother, suddenly, and I don't know why, had to talk about his going on this road trip, and then he had like kind of lame excuses, and the next day, which you might not know, Monday, we had a more honest discussion of it, and he was like, I was procrastinating and I was afraid. So, and that was to me a more satisfactory answer than like, oh, I heard things about you. I didn't think we were going out anymore. So, I mean, I can relate. I mean, it was really down to the wire. So it's insane, but I could accept it. And from the moment he had mentioned Camilla, I felt like this fear, like even the other day, where I was like, fuck, like there is something. I wrote something in my diary back then where I was like, I hope, because she was in San Francisco at the time and we weren't speaking, I hope she doesn't spill the beans. Like, oh my God, please let her keep her mouth shut. So I remember writing that and feeling that and thinking that. And then the other day when he mentioned her, the fear kicked in, and I was like, she had something on me. Like, what am I going to say? I don't know. And he's saying he heard something from Camilla. Even though he said it in this bullshitty way, like trying to intimidate me. Anyway, I went to therapy yesterday. And she was like, I mean, I'll condense. But she was like, you have PTSD, and that was a flashback to a traumatic time. You can't remember why you brought it up. You can't remember where it came from, and it hit you very, very strongly and emotionally. You get a really strong emotional reaction, and you pursued him until you felt comforted by what he could give you, and that's the only thing that made you feel safe. And I was like, yeah, okay. I didn't think of it as a PTSD flashback, because when I think of PTSD flashback, I think of veterans hitting the ground when they hear fireworks or something. So it's hard for me to take seriously when applied to myself. And she was like, that's what you had. And she's like, your amygdala or whatever, like, went into action. Something triggered it. I don't know how to pronounce that part of the brain. And it happened. You don't have to be a soldier to experience this. You have to be someone who has experienced trauma or multiple trauma and have feared for your life. Like, that's what it is. And have been in combat. And there are times where I feel like I have combat like responses to stimuli, and I'm like, later on, like, what the fuck was that? Like, I don't deserve to feel that way. Like, I wasn't that traumatized. But anyway, she's like, you had PTSD flashback. And then I told her, I was like, he said something about Camilla, like that Camilla told him something, and the other day I felt fear. I'm like, what did he tell her? Except I couldn't remember what she would have told him, and I even have it in my diary, but it's like not explained. It's just like, please, Camilla, don't tell him. So she was like, so what was it? And I was like, I don't know. And she was like, what was it? And I said, I don't know. She had some dirt on me, but I don't know what it was. I mean, I don't know. I cheated on him a few times. I don't know. I don't know. And she was like, what was it? It was like Good Will Hunting or something. And so we just looked at each other, and I said, I know what it was. And she's like, can you tell me? You don't have to. And I said, when we were around 19, she had this boyfriend, John, and he lived in an apartment off campus, whereas we lived on campus. And they invited me over to watch a movie. It seemed normal. I hung out with them a lot. But while we were watching the movie, we were talking and goofing, smoking pot, and they kept giving me shots of whatever, tequila probably, and beer. And I had like never been drunk before, like a little drunk, but never wasted. So I was drunk. And after the movie, Camilla's like, let's play strip poker. And I was like, okay, which I didn't know how to play. And we're like sitting around, and before you know it, I'm in my underwear, tits out. And then before you know that, she's got my head in her pussy, and I'm eating her out. And I'm really not liking it. And I feel really awkward because I don't want to be doing it. And that doesn't last too long in my memory. And then she's walking me to his big bed, and she's like, I really want you to do this. I don't know who she said that to. And then John's like, what? And she whispers in his ear, pss, pss, pss. And he's like, all right. And then he gets on top of me and pulls off my underwear and fucks me for seemingly a long time, as I recall. And a huge penis, it hurt. And then he rolled off. And Camilla goes, I can't believe you did that to me. And runs out of the room. Borderline. So, which I didn't know about back then. So she does that. He chases after her. And like I sit up and I'm like, I cheated on Paul. I cheated on Paul. I cheated on Paul. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I dress myself and run out of the house. And then they're like, wait, don't go. You're drunk. Stay here. I was like, no. I knew I was drunk. And I get my car and I drive down to Brooklyn. It's about an hour drive. And the whole time I'm like, you're drunk, drive carefully. It was nerve-wracking. And there was no traffic though because it was the middle of the night. And then I burst into my sister's apartment, like sobbing. And she wakes up, she's like, oh my God. And I'm sobbing and I'm repeating, I cheated on Paul. And she's like, calm down. I tell her the whole story. And she's like, look at me. Never tell Paul. Never tell him. Don't ever tell him this. It will ruin the way he sees you. It will ruin your relationship. He'll think you're a whore. It will do no good for either one of you for him to know this. Don't tell him. So I take it to heart. It wasn't what I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear, like, he'll love you no matter what. Like, you didn't really cheat on him. I think I wanted to hear that. Actually, I don't remember because I really felt like I cheated on him. But I think I wanted more, like, love and less, like, lawyer. Like, listen here, don't. Okay, so I called for an emergency appointment with my therapist the next day. And, she's like this bird-like woman. Her apartment is rich, seemed rich. Her office is in her house. She's in a rich neighborhood. I don't know. My father picked it up for me. So, Enid Friedman. So, I'm like hysterical. I'm like, last night I cheated on my boyfriend, on Paul, and I'm like, I'm so ashamed. And she's like, And how does that make you feel? So that was useless. Okay, so that happens. I never tell Paul. And then some years later, we're all in Portland and I'm ready to take off for Chicago. And I decide that I want to tell Paul the truth about everything. I had been like a liar and I felt like I had cheated on him. There's three. I made out with his friend Brian, which was gross, because they're best friends, and we did just a make out, and I did a make out with my friend boy Chris, which was gross, and I had sex with this one guy, but it was during a period where we were broken up, so I didn't feel like I had to tell him about that. He'd broken up with me. So, anyway, but I had these traumatic experiences. I wanted to come clean the best I could. And so we had this big talk in his bedroom in Portland, and I remember feeling some relief and scared that he would judge me, blah, 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 because of course he took it very quietly. Okay. So on the couch here on Monday night, we're talking about that, like this honesty thing, and I was talking about Zeke, and I was like, you remember that, right? Like I told you about that, because I didn't know if I told him everything all these years later. And he's like, yeah, but you can tell me again. So I tell him again, and he's like, non-judgmentally, but he's like, I'm pretty sure I told you the story. So non-judgmentally, he's like, you told me he took off his shirt, that he locked the door, and that he squeezed your legs really hard, and that he did it to you painfully. And I was like, I don't think any of that's true. I don't remember any of that. I have a pretty clear memory of what did happen, give or take some details, and and then he brings up some things with the Camilla and John that just sound like embellishments, exaggerations. And earlier in therapy was the next day, I was talking about this, and before I could say it, she went, "You embellished," because there was a gray area with sex, and you were afraid. She's like, the first event, first of all, that you've been minimizing, the apology that John gave you, which that happened, feeling like you could have stopped it if you hadn't been drinking. She was like, you were sexually assaulted, and you blamed yourself. And this thing with the guy in the Times Square hotel, it wasn't rape, but it was not something you really wanted to do. You weren't in a good place. You were missing Paul. So it's something that you felt sick about. And you were not raped. You weren't even sexually assaulted, but you felt really ill. And you felt like he could never understand why you would do that. You didn't want to hurt him because it doesn't feel good to find out that your significant other has been cheating on you. So you exaggerated because you didn't think you could handle the gray area, that women get into. And she said, you were sexualized at a young age, and victims of sexual abuse tend to kind of get into things that they don't really want, things that are not good for them, not their fault. But that's what happens. And so it was pretty heavy at 14:21, so I should stop. I think it's 14:30. But Paul seems to get it, strangely enough. Like, he didn't seem creeped out that I'd lied back. I'm creeped out. I was trying to tell the truth and I had to fill it with lies. But my therapist understands, and Paul seems to accept it. But okay, I better go now. Goodbye.